We are joined today by a survivor in Australian politics, the one and only Bob Katter. He's been in the rough and tumble of politics since 1974. He believes in strict migration policies. He's all about defending the interests of North Queensland, a strong advocate for gun ownership, and he's called for increased fuel security for Australia to become self-sufficient. Bob Katter, g'day.
G'day to the listeners.
Good morning to you, sir. How are you?
Terrific.
I've got my whip out today. Have a listen to this. You know why that is? I once asked you a question and you gave me a 16-minute answer. So I don't have 16 minutes this morning. So if you hear the whip, you know what that's all about. Let me ask you, first of all, about what's going on at the moment. The ISIS bride's coming to Australia. We learned today that there's a prison in Sydney that's going to be renovated to accommodate some of them. Should they be told don't come to Australia in the first place?
So I am saying continuously and continuingly, no migration without assimilation. And I make no apologies for saying, do they come from a country with democracy? No. Do they come from a country with rule of law? No. I make no apologies for saying, do they come from a country with Christianity? No. Do they come from a country with industrial awards? No. Then what the hell are you bringing them to this country for? They'll sit in little ethnic enclaves in Sydney and Melbourne, and they hate Australians. They'll never become Australians. And there are evil people bringing these people to Australia, and quite frankly, they're a cancer upon the soul of Australia.
Let's go to your calls right now. You can phone in, talk to Bob Katter, 131873. Peter's online right now. G'day, Peter.
Oh, g'day. I love your show, Ben. G'day, Bob, you little Aussie icon. You're an absolute champion. And I'd love you to jump in the ring with Pauline and give the strength to Queensland. I used to come out and pick you up out at Charters Towers and fly you into Gate 10 at Townsville on your way to Canberra. You might remember me from years ago.
And you'd like to see Bob team up with Pauline Hanson?
Oh, that'd be wonderful, wouldn't it?
Is that ever going to happen, Bob? Let me ask Bob.
Oh, look, we initiated 3 meetings, and, well, stop saying anything at that point, but we initiated 3 meetings, and I'll just leave it at that.
Why is One Nation so popular all of a sudden?
No, they have been more popular in days past. I have no doubts that, in fairness to Pauline, she's the only one that's been screaming against migration continuously and continuingly. And, you got to pay her credit.
Now, listen, your advisor outside, I'm not sure, your advisor is sending you a message to say stop coughing into the microphone. So that's not coming from me, that's from your advisor. Do you listen to your advisors?
That's a question I will not answer.
At times. Now, after the Bondi Beach terror attack, you blame both the current and former government for years of failures to tackle hate. You said they allowed these people into our country. They allowed them to bring with them their hatred and wars. They allowed them to burn our flag and make anti-Australian and anti-Semitic statements. And you made the observation that Anthony Albanese shouldn't be surprised about what we saw on December 14 last year.
I think it was the Liberal government, actually, that allowed that father and son into Australia. And no sooner than Australia, they're on ASIO watch list. What, you didn't know anything about them before they came in? Now, there is a prejudice for these people. They vote Labor, and obviously the more you bring in, the more votes you're going to have. Now, there's a second problem, that people in Victoria are on the move. On their number plate, on the move. Underneath it is written by the larrikins, on the move, to Queensland. And that is actually true. To build their numbers up, they have to bring people in from overseas. And who do you bring in? People that vote Labor. So we have a very evil piece of machinery operating there.
Let's go to Declan. He's got a question for Bob Katter. Bob Katter live in 2GB Studios. Declan, go right ahead.
Morning, Ben. The sage John Newman put me on to you. Bob, just getting in touch as a ringer from Victoria that's escaped to QLD as a political refugee. In your 50 years in Canberra, have you had it any easier, as the current mob couldn't run a bath?
Well, I look over at the other side. Susan Ley moved for the abolition of live animal exports. Well, I hate to tell her, but the biggest... there's the big 3, iron ore, coal and gas. And then the next biggest is beef. Well, she was going to abolish the whole industry
Is
You know,
Angus
and she
Taylor
was their leader.
Is Angus Taylor doing a better job?
Yeah, well, Angus did put the emergency houses in Texas. And I said, oh, that's good. You know, Texas, handy to Sydney and Brisbane. No, not Texas in Queensland. Texas in the United States, the emergency fuel supply.
Let me
But I
talk
don't know.
about-
It could be a one-off. and
Let
I
me
don't want to
talk
judge
about
him on
fuel
it.
because we're being warned that the war in the Middle East could send petrol prices as high as $3 a litre. Chris Bowen is saying don't panic, don't go panic buying. That's despite Australia barely having half the oil reserves it's obligated to have. And you've been saying for years that government must act and secure our fuel supply. And you've also spoken for a long time about ethanol.
Well, you know, I just putting this out there in the press, probably next week. But I'm sorry, I asked the question in the House. Australia is uniquely situated to supply all of our own fuel. Now, the biggest import item, we send $62,000 million overseas every year to buy fuel. We are 30% self-sufficient in oil, and we are amongst the biggest exporters of sugar and grain in the world.
Shouldn't
we are
we be
uniquely
using-
set for supplying ourselves, and instead we're saying $60,000 million a year.
Shouldn't we be using more ethanol?
Absolutely. But there's another reason for that. When IEMA introduced it here in Sydney, in New South Wales, he said, I will not go another day with people dying that don't have to die. Over 1,000 people die in Sydney every year for what comes out of your exhaust pipe. They don't die in any other country on earth because all the rest of them have 5% ethanol in the petrol tank.
Under the Biofuels Act in New South Wales, 6% of the total volume of petrol sold must be ethanol. According to our information, it's closer to 2%.
I doubt whether it'll be 2%. You know, I doubt whether it's 1.5%. But it's just treated with contempt. Subsequent governments couldn't care how many people die in Sydney. So it just goes on. And the evil influence of the foreign oil companies, of course, is all pervading here. They will listen to the foreign oil companies and watch 1,000 people die in Sydney. To quote him, don't have to die. And I went to the top medical people in Australia, and every one of them said that is dead true. There's 1,000 people dying from exhaust fumes that don't have to die. And I won't go into the details why ethanol stops them from dying.
Bob, we know that you are a strong advocate for gun ownership. A lot of people in Sydney don't want to see more guns. How do you reconcile that?
I'll just say one word, Bondi. You can't defend us. You, the government, can't defend us. Absolute proof is Bondi. You can't defend us, but you're going to stop us from defending ourselves. Now, in all of human history, when wise men have sat down to write a Bill of Rights or, Constitution, they have always put in the right to bear arms. It is in the Magna Carta. Archbishop
I wouldn't
put it
trust
in the
my
Magna
fellow
Carta.
Australians, though.
Sorry?
I wouldn't trust my fellow Australians. I mean, in the city I live in, a little bit different to where you are, I wouldn't trust the people I share this city with if there were more guns in it.
No, you have no protection, right? What are you going to do, ring the police up, are you?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the downtime is about 42 minutes. So I think whatever's going to happen in your house is going to be happening well before the police arrive. And I don't say that to denigrate the police. I mean, heaven, 2 of them died trying to prevent Bondi. It's not their fault, but there's just not enough police to have the reaction time to protect you and your house. And what is more, it is my right to, if I choose, to protect myself and my house. The advanced democracies in Northern Europe, it's compulsory or semi-compulsory in most of those countries.
Are you armed?
Absolutely. Absolutely. All of my life, I was brought up, and remember, my grandparents went to Cloncurry in a Cobham Coast stagecoach in the 1890s, and the Colquhoun Wars was still petering along at that time. You had to protect. Well, it's not any different now. In Townsville, there's the highest crime rate in Australia by a long way, breaking and entering. And, of course, it's a big issue there. We have what is called, we use a name for it, but it's your right to protect yourself in your own home, castle law. And the biggest number of petitioners in Queensland history petitioned to have castle law.
We've had
That
the
I had a
same
right
petition
to
here.
protect myself.
We've had it in New South Wales as well. People want the right to be able to defend themselves if
in
some
their own home.
knucklehead breaks into their home.
Themselves in
You
their own
mentioned your grandparents. This was an incident that popped up, I think it was late last year, a question either about your grandparents or great-grandparents. It upset you and you ended up threatening to punch someone.
Bob, you've got Lebanese heritage yourself.
Oh, mate, don't say that, because that irritates me, and I punch blokes in the mouth for saying that. Don't you dare say that. My family have been in this country for 140 years, right? So if you say anything like that, I have, on many occasions, punched blokes in the mouth, right? So I'm restraining myself today. Don't say that.
I'm sure
Don't say that, because you're a racist. You're a racist. You cannot say what you just said without being identified as a racist.
Any regrets about that, Bob?
He is a racist. He looks at me and he sees me as someone that's not Australian. And quite frankly, anyone ever did that in my family, you got bashed.
Well, what's wrong with having Lebanese heritage?
There's nothing wrong with that. I just don't, I'm not.
You don't
I
identify.
have absolutely no identification with any grouping, whether they come from Devon or whether they come from the Middle East or wherever they come from. I'm an Australian.
It's not about denying where your history is. It's about saying, no, we want everyone to identify as one thing, and that's Australian and Australian only.
And, I've always, throughout my life, with people from all over the world in North Queensland, we're, a potpourri of people. And you don't want to start making a comment like that, because you'll get a hiding in North Queensland. And, it's just the way you're brought up. And so that's why I'm brought up. He called me a name that meant I wasn't an Australian. So he was going to get bashed. And I don't apologise for that.
I bet you enjoy Lebanese food.
No, see, there you go.
We all enjoy Lebanese food, Bob.
No. I live in little country towns. We don't have Lebanese food.
No?
Falafel? In the bush. No, I don't even know what that is.
Hummus?
No, see.
Tabbouleh?
I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about.
I bet I know what you have. You'd have a steak with an egg on top, wouldn't you?
That is correct. Steak and eggs and chips.
How did I know?
Yeah.
Sunny side up?
Yeah, but but I think I'm making a point here. You must aggressively reject being identified as different. And remember, I come from town, which is, you're Murray from the Curry if you're dark complexion. So I'm often identified as first Australian, and whether it's pretty mixed up.
Yeah, hang on a minute. You just reminded me of something. You've identified as an Indigenous person before because you're Indigenous to this land.
But, well, yes, but there's a bit of a Cloncurry thing. They say you're Murray from the Curry, particularly if you're dark complexion. So, but, my brother was very big and very aggressive, but he never got in one single fight about it, because if you're Murray from the Curry, well, yes. Boss.
You talk a big game about punching people. Have you ever thrown a punch?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I've copped plenty too, I've got to tell you.
When was the last time you got involved in fisticuffs?
I think it was the Julia Creek pub. Yeah.
What happened?
Well, there were three reasons why I fought him. One, he was half my size, good reason to get in the fight. Two, he was blind drunk and absolutely no hope hanging one on me. And three, he was making like Tarzan, swinging backwards and forwards on my tie, screaming obscenities at the barmaid and myself,
Oh, you can't
which
have
didn't
that.
leave me a lot of alternatives.
You had a duty to step in and protect the barmaid, right? You can't have a bloke swearing at the barmaid.
Her honour. Yes.
We love this moment in Bob Catter's life. This is when you were asked about the same-sex marriage debate, and you turned the attention pretty quickly to crocodiles.
I mean, people are entitled to their sexual proclivities. I mean, let there be 1,000 blossoms bloom as far as I'm concerned. But I ain't spending any time on it, because in the meantime, every 3 months, a person is torn to pieces by a crocodile in North Queensland.
We can have a laugh about it, that moment, but not about the crocodile issue. Let's get to the crocodiles in a moment. First of all, did you realise that you were going viral after you delivered that line?
I didn't really care. I was angry. I wanted to get onto the crocodiles. Someone had just been torn to pieces by a crocodile, and I want to get back on it. But,
They're moving further south, aren't they, the crocodiles?
Yes, and one turned up at Gympie, which is really almost on the outskirts of like Newcastle, to Sydney. Gympie would be to Brisbane, and one turned up in the river there. Now, I don't know, some of my mates might have thought it was funny, maybe, but I don't think so. I think they are moving south, a bit warmer weather, and they're moving south.
We need a cull?
A crocodile mother has 60 eggs each year. So you imagine if every woman in Sydney had 60 babies each year. That's what you got in North Queensland. But
It'd fix the birth rate.
But you see, people that know nothing about nature are making decisions, right? They have excluded the shooters from the national parks, which is all of the jungle. The cassowaries, there's just no way, and I'm not sleeping well at night about this one, there's no way they're going to survive the pig numbers. They're saying 3 million in the jungles in North Queensland, and that's where the cassowaries live, and the pigs take the eggs. Now, people whose boot leathers never set foot off concrete pavement are making decisions about things that they know absolutely nothing about.
And in the time that you've been warning about the croc numbers, there have been more and more people who've fallen victim. We've got a question here from Damien for Bob Catter. Go right ahead, Damien.
Oh, good morning, Bob. I believe you know my father, Alan Burdell in Ingham. Bob, when can we get the conversation back into the harvesting of water, given what's going on weather-wise in Central Australia and, as usual, up in North Queensland at the moment?
Great question, Bob.
We are desperately short of fuel, and it's in jeopardy all of the time. I used to have a big tank in the backyard in Charters House, but it really is a consistent problem. And we have about 3% self-sufficiency in petrol. Now, if you allow, I represent half of Australia's water, falls in the Kennedy electorate. The biggest river in Australia, the Mitchell, just slightly bigger than the Murray-Darling. The third biggest river, the Burdekin. The fourth biggest river, the Gilbert. The sixth biggest river, the Flinders River, all in the Kennedy electorate. How much of that water do we use? 0.5%.
Why do we let so much of it go?
0.5%. In New South Wales, we're using 28%, but 0.5%. Where the water is, there's no farming. And, we started building the dams, as usual, close to Brisbane, but they crept right up to south of Townsville, the last dam. But Jock Pearson government fell, and we haven't built a dam in Queensland in 33 years.
Lucy says, don't let Bob Catter go without hearing him sing. Have a listen to this.
On the sands of Bathsheba, where the proud whalers prance, carrying their riders along in a trance, they charged with their bayonets, no sabre or lance, and they died for the pride of Australia.
I know you love Australian history, but you don't mind belting out a tune either. Is this a side hustle for Bob Catter?
That's just a lovely song. But, my family, we lost a son at Gallipoli, and we lost another son soon after release from Shanghai. So, that next line goes, the angel of death with his knock at the door, the crumpled up telegram falls to the floor. Her reason for living is living no more, as she cries for the pride of Australia. My great-great-grandmother got that telegram, and my great-grandmother got that telegram.
You're still representing your people and your country after all these years, and long may that be the case. I really appreciate you coming in. I've only got 30 seconds, as you can see on the clock. Any thoughts of retirement?
No, Ben, I've got terrific energy. My son on national television said, I wish I had whatever he's taking. Terrific energy. And I got Tiger in my tank, and I'm very, very dangerous person, That's not always good, but it's true.
Well, keep the Tiger roaring, and it's great to have you in the studio this morning.
Great honour, Ben. Great honour to be on your program, and you're a good Australian.